The Desert Man and the Princess. The twin suns were high in the sky, burning over the dry, quiet desert. The wind carried sand across the ground like whispers from another world. In this lonely place, far away from cities and war, a man lived alone. His name was Ethan. He didn't speak much. He didn't trust many. He fixed broken machines for the small human outpost nearby. People paid him with food or parts. He lived in a small hut made of metal scraps. Most people thought he was just another wanderer, hiding from something. They were right. But no one knew what he was hiding from. One hot afternoon, the sky changed. A large shadow moved over the village. People ran outside and looked up. A royal alien ship, long, silver, and glowing with blue energy, was landing. It wasn't normal. That kind of ship belonged to kings and queens, or worse, war generals. Ethan watched from a distance. His face remained calm, but his hands shook. He saw the ship's symbol. It was the royal crest of Zarian, the alien kingdom that once fought against humans in the Great Galactic War. Ethan whispered to himself, "No, it can't be." The ship opened with a hiss. Soldiers in golden armor stepped out, forming two lines. Then, from the center, a tall figure walked forward. She was wearing a silver cloak. Her skin was soft purple, glowing under the sun. Her eyes were large and bright blue. On her forehead was a shining jewel, the mark of royalty. It was Princess Ryla. She stood in the middle of the outpost and spoke loudly. "I seek the human who saved me during the war. Years ago, he vanished without a name." Silence. No one knew what she was talking about. Some villagers looked at each other. A few laughed. A few were scared. Ethan stepped back, hiding behind an old wall. His heart pounded. He remembered her. He remembered that day. He had saved a small alien girl from a burning building during the war. Her name was Ryla. She had been crying. Soldiers were everywhere. He had carried her on his back, risking his life. He never thought she would survive. He never thought she would remember. But she did. That night, the villagers gathered around fires. Princess Ryla sat with them, listening to their stories, eating their food. She was kind. Nothing like the rulers they had heard about. Ethan sat far away, watching her from the shadows. She smiled often. She helped a child who fell. She thanked everyone. But now and then, her eyes searched the crowd. She was looking for him. Later, when the fires died down, she walked alone through the quiet village. Her guards stayed behind. She walked slowly, almost as if guided by something unseen. And then she stopped, right in front of Ethan's small hut. Ethan opened the door, surprised. She looked at him. He looked at her. Something in her eyes changed. She whispered, "It's you, isn't it?" Ethan's throat went dry. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to hug her and tell her everything was okay. But he didn't. Instead, he said, "You must be mistaken. I've never met a princess before." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled sadly. "Maybe I am mistaken. Or maybe you're just not ready to tell the truth." She turned and walked away. Ethan closed the door slowly and sat on the floor. He pulled out an old necklace from under his shirt. It was broken and burned, but it had a small charm hanging from it. The same charm he gave that little alien girl the day he saved her. He whispered, "I thought you'd forget me." Secrets beneath the sand. The morning after the princess arrived, the desert felt different. The wind still blew softly. The sky was still endless, but something had changed. Princess Ryla was still in the outpost. She didn't leave in her shiny ship. She didn't give orders. Instead, she stayed, walking among the people like one of them. Children followed her with wide eyes. Old women offered her food. She bowed respectfully to each of them, her royal cloak trailing behind like moonlight on sand. But one person kept hiding from her. Ethan. He watched from the shadows again, standing behind broken buildings or looking from far away as he worked on old machines. He thought maybe, just maybe, she would give up and leave. But she didn't. Instead, she helped. She repaired broken water tanks using alien tools. She healed a young boy's infected leg with strange glowing medicine. She even climbed a rooftop to fix a solar panel herself. Every act made Ethan feel smaller and guiltier. At night, the village gathered again. They sat around fires under the stars. Ryla shared stories from her kingdom. Funny, sad, wise stories of alien planets and distant moons. She never mentioned the war. She never spoke about the day she was rescued. But every night, she looked at Ethan's hut. And every night, Ethan sat alone inside, holding that broken necklace in his hand. Flashback. 10 years ago. A city burned. Sirens screamed. Alien buildings collapsed like paper. Ethan, younger and full of fire, ran through flames. He was a soldier, a fighter, a rule breaker. That day, he disobeyed orders. He was told to evacuate, to leave the alien child behind. But he didn't. He ran into the ruins and found her, small, crying, hiding behind a metal crate. Her eyes were full of fear. He took off his helmet, knelt down, and said gently, "I'm here to help you. Don't be afraid." She couldn't speak his language, but she nodded. He carried her out, through fire, through gunshots, through falling debris. At one point, he thought he wouldn't make it, but he did. He laid her on the ground near a human medship, placed the necklace around her neck, and whispered, "Live for me." Then, he vanished. Back to present. Ryla woke early on the third day. She walked to the edge of the outpost, where the sand met the cliffs. There, she saw something strange. An old satellite dish half buried in the sand. It was broken but still blinking faintly. She touched it. A tiny voice came through, crackling. "Ethan, are you still alive?" Ryla's eyes widened. She followed the wire back through the sand, carefully, slowly, until it led to a hidden compartment near Ethan's hut. She didn't open it. She stepped back, confused and thoughtful. Something wasn't right. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He stepped outside and walked into the quiet desert. He moved far from the lights of the outpost. Just silence, stars, and cold air. He sat on a rock, watching the sky. And then he heard soft footsteps. Ryla. She stood beside him in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "You saved me once. I know it was you." Ethan didn't look at her. She continued, "I remember your voice, your eyes. You gave me something, a gift." She pulled a small charm from around her neck, the same one from Ethan's necklace. "I thought you died." Ethan closed his eyes. "I wanted you to think that." "Why?" she asked softly. "Because I broke the law," Ethan said. "My people would have punished me for saving you. Your people might have too." Ryla sat beside him on the rock. The desert wind danced around them. "I would have done the same if it was you," she said. Ethan looked at her for the first time. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of something deep. Pain, maybe, or love. "You were just a child," he whispered. "I'm not anymore," she said. He looked down. "You don't know what I've done, who I used to be." "I know who you were that day," she said. "You were my hero." The silence between them grew heavier, until it was broken by a sharp sound in the sky. A strange, fast ship passed overhead. Black, quiet, dangerous. Ryla stood up quickly. "That's not one of mine." Ethan stood too. "It's not one of ours either." They both watched as the ship disappeared over the cliffs. Back at the village. The next morning, the outpost was buzzing. People had seen the black ship too. Rumors spread. And then a stranger arrived. He was tall, wearing dark armor, with a long scar down his cheek. His eyes were cold. He walked through the village slowly, looking at every face. He stopped near a water station and asked an old man, "I'm searching for a man named Ethan." "Seen him," The old man shrugged. "No Ethan here." But the stranger didn't believe him. He touched his wrist device. A small image appeared, a younger Ethan, dressed as a soldier, carrying a child in his arms. This man is a criminal, a traitor to his kind. The hunt begins. The air was tense as the bounty hunter walked through the outpost. His movements were deliberate, each step calculated. He wasn't here to blend in. He was here to make a statement. Ethan stayed hidden, crouching behind a wall of stacked metal crates. His mind raced. He had expected many things, but not this. Not him. The man had a name, but people only ever called him Razor. A killer, a tracker, a man who never let his target escape. Ethan knew Razor's reputation. He had heard stories from old comrades, whispers of a relentless predator who left no loose ends. And now, that predator was here, scanning the outpost, looking for one face among many. His face. Ethan pressed his back against the crates, steadying his breathing. His fingers curled around the handle of a rusted tool. He didn't have a weapon, hadn't needed one in years. But as Razor's voice carried across the open courtyard, he realized how unprepared he was. "I'm looking for Ethan Tyrell," Razor said, his voice like a blade against stone. "A former soldier. Human. Some of you know him, even if you won't admit it. If you help me, you'll be rewarded. If you don't." He smiled, a cruel expression that promised pain. The villagers murmured nervously. Most didn't know Ethan's real name. To them, he was just a quiet mechanic who kept to himself. But Razor wasn't guessing. He had a holo image of Ethan's face, younger but unmistakable, projected from his wrist. "That's him." The bounty hunter's steps grew closer. Ethan tightened his grip on the tool. His heart pounded, the weight of the past crashing down on him. All those years of hiding, running, building a new life. It was all unraveling in this moment. Ryla watched from the shadows. She had followed Ethan, not out of suspicion, but concern. When she saw the bounty hunter, her stomach tightened. She had heard of Razor as well, though their worlds rarely overlapped. The man was known even among alien nobility as someone who never failed. Ryla stepped closer, staying out of sight. She saw Ethan's silhouette hunched behind the crates. She could feel his fear, his tension. The man who had saved her life was now a hunted fugitive, and she couldn't understand why. Why would someone want to kill the person who had shown her kindness? She had to find out. The first move came faster than Ethan expected. A villager panicked. A boy, barely a teenager, ran toward the edge of the outpost, tripping over a basket of dried fruit. The sound made Razor snap his attention in that direction. He raised his weapon, a sleek alien rifle, and aimed. Ethan couldn't stop himself. He sprang from his hiding spot, lunging toward Razor with the rusted tool. The boy's life wasn't worth his own safety. Not after everything he had done. The fight began. Razor turned just in time, blocking Ethan's swing with the butt of his rifle. The clang of metal on metal echoed. Villagers scattered, running for cover. Ethan swung again, and this time Razor ducked, delivering a sharp kick to Ethan's side. Ethan stumbled but didn't fall. He threw the tool like a makeshift weapon. It missed Razor by inches, but it bought him enough time to grab a broken pipe from the ground. They circled each other. "You shouldn't have come out," Razor said, his voice calm, almost amused. "I would have found you anyway, but now you've made it easier." Ethan didn't answer. He had no plan, no strategy. He was fighting on instinct, driven by desperation. Ryla watched from the shadows, her hands clenched into fists. She wanted to help, but she didn't know how. She wasn't a fighter. She was a princess, trained in diplomacy and politics. But watching Ethan fight for his life sparked something inside her. An unfamiliar, burning need to protect him, just as he had protected her all those years ago. The turning point came when Ethan spotted a flaw. Razor was overconfident. He assumed Ethan was just a washed-up soldier, rusty and slow. But Ethan still had the reflexes of someone who had survived a war. He feinted left, then right, and managed to land a solid blow with the pipe to Razor's shoulder. Razor grunted, staggering back. For a brief moment, Ethan felt hope. But Razor recovered quickly. Too quickly. He flipped a switch on his rifle, and it let out a low hum. A deadly charge built up, ready to fire. Ethan knew he couldn't dodge it. And then, everything changed. Ryla stepped into the open. Her voice rang out clear and strong. "Stop." Razor hesitated. He didn't expect interference. When he turned, he saw her standing tall, her royal mark glowing in the dim light. "What are you doing here?" Razor demanded. Ryla's expression was calm but commanding. "You're trespassing on my people's territory. I don't care who hired you. Leave now, and I'll forget this happened." Razor narrowed his eyes. "You're protecting him. Why?" Ryla didn't blink. "Because he saved me. And if you kill him, you'll answer to me and my entire kingdom." The bounty hunter wasn't easily intimidated, but this was no ordinary interference. Ryla was a princess, a diplomat, a figure of authority. Killing her protector would come with consequences Razor might not want to face. For a moment, he seemed to consider his options. But then he smiled. "You're bluffing," he said. "And I never leave a job unfinished." Razor raised his weapon. The charge built up again. Ethan acted before he could think. He grabbed the nearest piece of machinery, a heavy rusted gear, and hurled it at Razor's head. It wasn't enough to knock him out, but it forced him to move, throwing off his aim. Ryla took the opportunity to close the distance. She wasn't trained to fight, but she wasn't helpless either. She reached for Razor's wrist, activating a hidden device on her bracelet. A bright pulse of light blinded everyone. When Ethan's vision cleared, Razor was on the ground, stunned but not unconscious. Ryla stood over him, breathing hard. "Leave," she said again, this time with more authority. Razor scowled. "This isn't over." He tapped his wrist and vanished in a flash of light, a teleportation device taking him away. The fight was over, but the danger wasn't. Ethan sat down heavily, his chest heaving. Ryla knelt beside him, her face a mixture of relief and concern. "You shouldn't have done that," Ethan said quietly. "You've made yourself a target now." "I couldn't let you die," Ryla replied simply. They stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Ethan said, "Thank you." Ryla nodded, then stood up. "We need to figure out why he's after you. What happened after you saved me?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked out at the horizon, where Razor's ship had disappeared. "I don't know," he lied. But in his heart, he knew the truth was catching up to him. And this time, there was no running. Her eyes filled with tears. The sun was setting over the desert outpost, casting a deep orange glow across the dunes. Ethan sat on a low stone wall at the edge of the village, his shoulders heavy with the weight of years spent hiding. He held the broken necklace in his hand, running his thumb over the charred edges. His mind replayed the fight with Razor, the pulse of light that Ryla had unleashed, and the look in her eyes when she knelt beside him. He hadn't seen that look in a long time. It was trust that he didn't deserve. Ethan shook his head. "You should have just let him kill me," he muttered under his breath. "It would have been easier for everyone." Behind him, a voice answered softly, "That's not what I do." He turned and saw Princess Ryla standing there, her long silver cloak catching the wind. Her expression was calm, but her glowing blue eyes were searching, piercing into him like she was trying to read his very soul. "What are you doing here?" Ethan asked, his tone gruff. "Watching over you," she said simply. Ethan scoffed. "I don't need your help. You should leave before more bounty hunters show up. This isn't your fight." Ryla took a step closer. "It became my fight the moment you saved my life, all those years ago. And it became my fight again when Razor pointed that weapon at you." Ethan turned away, staring out at the horizon. "You don't understand. I broke every rule to save you. I betrayed my own people. I'm not a hero. I'm not someone worth saving." Ryla stepped around the wall, standing in front of him. Then tell me why you did it. Tell me why you risked everything back then, if you're so certain you didn't deserve to. Ethan didn't respond at first. He looked down at the necklace again, the small charm that once belonged to a frightened alien child. Because, he hesitated, his voice cracking, because you didn't deserve to die. You were just a kid. I couldn't let that happen, even if it meant giving up everything. FLASHBACK, the night of the rescue. Ethan crouched in the ruins of a shattered alien city, his breathing labored, his side bleeding from shrapnel. The heat of the fires around him was suffocating, but he pushed forward. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat, to leave, to save himself. His orders were clear: evacuate. Leave no trace. The alien population is not our concern. But then he heard it, a faint whimper. He rounded a corner and saw her, a small alien child, no older than 7 or 8 in human years. Her skin was a pale violet, her luminous eyes wide with terror. She was clutching a piece of cloth, hiding behind a crumbling wall as smoke filled the air. Ethan froze. He had no idea what she was saying, but he could feel the fear radiating from her. This isn't my problem, he told himself. This isn't my fight. But when the building behind her began to collapse, he didn't think. He acted. He grabbed her, wrapping her in his arms as debris rained down around them. He ran through the chaos, shielding her from falling beams, dodging explosions, ignoring the pain in his side. When he reached the edge of the battlefield, he set her down gently and pulled off his dog tags. He took the small charm attached to the chain and placed it in her tiny hands. "Keep this," he said. "Keep it and live." And then he vanished into the night. Back to P.W.'s end. Ryla sat down beside Ethan on the wall. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "I kept it, you know. All these years, I kept it." Ethan didn't meet her gaze. "I never thought I'd see you again." "But you did," she said. "And I'm not leaving until I understand." Ethan sighed heavily. "After I saved you, everything changed. My unit disowned me. My superiors branded me a traitor. I couldn't go back to my people, and I couldn't stay on your world. So I ran. I disappeared. I thought if I just stayed out of sight, no one would care anymore." "But someone still cares," Ryla said. "Razor came here for a reason." Ethan shook his head. "I don't know why. It's been years. I thought they'd forgotten. But maybe someone found out you're still alive. Maybe they realized I didn't follow orders." Ryla frowned. "Then we need to figure out who sent him. And we need to stop them before they send more." Ethan laughed bitterly. "You make it sound so easy." "It's not easy," Ryla admitted, "but it's right. And after what you did for me, I won't stand by while you're hunted." For the first time, Ethan looked at her fully. Her face was resolute, her eyes filled with a determination that reminded him of the girl he had saved. But now she was a woman, a princess, someone who had grown strong in the years he had spent running. "I don't know if I can do this," Ethan said. "I'm not the man you think I am." "You're the man who saved a helpless child when no one else would," Ryla said. "And that's all I need to know." The princess and the warrior. The whine of the approaching drone grew louder, its searchlight carving a path through the darkness. Ethan stood stiffly, his muscles tight, his jaw clenched. He glanced at Ryla, who stared back with calm determination. "We have to go," Ethan said, his voice low. "Now." Ryla nodded, following him without hesitation as he turned toward the rocky cliffs that framed the edge of the village. Behind them, the outpost was stirring. People peeked from their homes, their faces pale in the glow of the drone's light. They knew better than to get involved. This was no longer their fight. But it was Ethan's fight. It always had been. He led Ryla down a narrow path that twisted through the jagged rock formations. The cliffs loomed high, providing shadows deep enough to obscure them from the drone's sensors. Ethan moved swiftly, his years of experience guiding his steps. Ryla matched his pace without complaint, her silver cloak tucked tightly around her. "How far do we have to go?" she asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. His mind was busy calculating the drone's trajectory, the distance to his hidden cache of supplies, and the likelihood of Razor's return. Finally, he said, "Far enough that they'll lose our trail. We have to get to the caves." Ryla raised an eyebrow. "Caves?" Ethan nodded. "Old mining tunnels. They're deep, twisting. If we can get inside, we can hold out long enough to figure out our next move." "And if we don't make it?" she pressed. He shot her a glance. "We'll make it." The cliffs grew steeper as they climbed. Ethan knew the terrain well, having scouted it during his years of isolation. He had found the caves long ago and used them as a refuge on more than one occasion. He wasn't sure how much Ryla could endure, but she surprised him with her endurance and focus. She didn't complain. She didn't falter. Ethan had always thought of her as fragile, someone he had to protect. But now, watching her navigate the treacherous path without hesitation, he began to see her differently. She wasn't the scared child he had carried through the war. She was a princess, a leader, someone who had faced her own challenges and survived. They paused briefly at the crest of a ridge, catching their breath. The drone's searchlight swept across the rocky landscape, missing them by mere meters. Ethan signaled for Ryla to stay low as they moved along the edge of the cliff, inching closer to the entrance of the caves. "You're good at this," Ryla remarked in a hushed tone. Ethan gave a dry chuckle. "Not exactly something I'm proud of." "It's something I appreciate," she replied, her voice sincere. "You could have left me back there. You didn't have to come this way." "I didn't come this way for you," Ethan said, though he knew the words weren't entirely true. He had thought about running off alone, losing himself in the desert. But the thought of leaving her behind, unprotected, unsettled him more than he cared to admit. As they continued, Ryla broke the silence again. "You've been running for years. What made you stay in that village? Why didn't you keep moving?" Ethan didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "I got tired of running." She waited, hoping he would elaborate, but he didn't. She decided not to push him, for now. They reached the entrance to the caves just as the drone's light passed over the ridge again. Ethan motioned for Ryla to stay quiet as they slipped inside the narrow opening. The air inside was cool, damp, and still. The walls glistened faintly in the moonlight that filtered through cracks in the rock. Ethan knew the layout well. He guided Ryla deeper into the tunnels, through winding passages and narrow choke points. He had stored supplies here: food, water, a few rudimentary weapons. Nothing fancy, but enough to hold out for a while. As they settled into a small chamber, Ethan lit a dim lamp, its yellow glow casting shadows on the rough walls. He handed Ryla a canteen of water and a ration pack, then sat down against the wall, his own mind racing with plans and contingencies. "How long do you think we have before they find us?" Ryla asked. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "Hard to say. Razor isn't the type to give up easily, and if he's got more drones or reinforcements, we'll have to move again." Ryla studied him carefully. She could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of years spent looking over his shoulder. But she also saw something else, a flicker of resolve, the same determination that had driven him to save her all those years ago. "What will you do if they capture you?" she asked quietly. Ethan shrugged. "Not much I can do if that happens." "But you won't let it happen, will you?" Her voice was firm, almost challenging. He looked at her, his expression hard to read. "I'll do what I have to." Ryla nodded slowly. "Then so will I." Hours passed in tense silence. The lamp's light flickered as the air grew cooler. Ethan rested his head against the wall, his eyes half closed. Ryla sat nearby, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She seemed calm, but her mind was racing. The thought of losing Ethan again, after finally finding him, was unbearable. She reached into her cloak and pulled out the necklace. The charm glimmered faintly in the lamplight. She held it tightly, her thumb tracing the edges of the small metal piece. "I kept it," she said softly, breaking the silence. Ethan opened his eyes. He didn't need to look to know what she was talking about. It was all I had left of that day. Of you, she continued. When I woke up and you were gone, I didn't understand why. I thought maybe you didn't care. But as I grew older, I realized you must have had a reason. Something that forced you to leave. Ethan stared at the floor. You deserved better than what I could give you. I didn't need better, Ryla said. I just needed you to be honest. To tell me why you left. To tell me the truth. Her voice wavered slightly. I spent years wondering if you were alive. If you even remembered me. And when I found out you were still here, still fighting, I knew I had to come find you. To ask you myself. Ethan closed his eyes, his chest tightening. He wanted to tell her everything. About the war, about his choices, about the guilt that had driven him into hiding. But he couldn't bring himself to speak. Ryla's eyes filled with tears. She quickly wiped them away, trying to maintain her composure. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that I remember. I always will. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, from the distance, a faint mechanical sound echoed through the tunnels. Ethan's head snapped up. He grabbed his makeshift weapon, a length of pipe he had stashed long ago, and motioned for Ryla to stay behind him. They found us, he said grimly. The ceremony of truth. Ethan and Ryla emerged from the tunnels hours later, stepping into a gray dawn. The drone that had pursued them was nowhere to be seen, but the absence of sound didn't mean safety. Ethan knew better than to trust a moment's quiet. Every shadow was a potential ambush, every open stretch of desert a trap. Ryla, walking beside him, tightened her silver cloak around her shoulders. Her face was set, her posture straight. She hadn't spoken much since the cave, but Ethan didn't need her words to feel the weight of what lay ahead. They were running out of places to hide. What's next? She asked, her voice low but steady. Ethan scanned the horizon. The village was far behind them now, lost in the shifting dunes. A faint ridgeline marked their new destination, the outer remains of an abandoned mining colony. It was a ruin, a crumbling remnant of human and alien labor during the early expansions. But beyond the rubble lay something else. A gateway. Or at least, that's what Ethan had always called it. It's not far, he said. We'll take shelter there, see if we can throw them off our trail. It's not much, but it's better than wandering out in the open. Ryla nodded, but her eyes lingered on him. You're still hiding something, aren't you? Ethan stiffened, his pace quickening. I've been hiding a lot of things. Don't think I can stop now. The ruins of the old colony came into view by midday. Sunlight filtered through broken metal structures, casting long, jagged shadows. The wind carried the faint scent of rust and decay. Ethan led Ryla through the outer edge of the complex, navigating narrow pathways and collapsed buildings until they reached the gateway. It wasn't a literal gateway, just a massive circular structure made of weathered stone and alien metals, a place that had once served as a central hub for the colony's operations. Here, beneath the gateway's arch, they could rest. Ethan leaned against the wall, pulling off his gloves and checking the supplies in his pack. He handed Ryla another ration pack, though she barely glanced at it. She was staring up at the gateway's arch, her expression thoughtful. You used to come here often, didn't you? She asked. Ethan froze mid-motion. How do you know that? You said you've been hiding for years. I can see it in how you move, how you know these paths without thinking. This was your sanctuary. Ethan sighed, dropping his pack to the ground. It's not a sanctuary, just a hiding spot. But it meant something to you, she pressed. Didn't it? He looked at her, his expression guarded. What do you want from me, Ryla? I want the truth, she said firmly. No more half answers, no more deflections. I want to know why you really saved me that day, and why you keep running from the people who should have been your allies. Ethan met her gaze, and for a moment, the walls he had carefully built around himself began to crack. He wanted to tell her. He wanted to lay it all out, to confess every sin, every regret, every choice that had led to this moment. But the words wouldn't come. "Because I had no other choice," he said at last, his voice rough. "Because that was the only thing I could do that felt right. Everything else I'd done in my life, every fight, every mission, every decision, it all felt wrong. But saving you, that was the only thing that made sense." Ryla stepped closer, her luminous eyes searching his face. "You say that like you regret it." Ethan shook his head. "I don't. I never did. But I knew what it meant. It meant I couldn't go back. It meant I'd always be looking over my shoulder. And I accepted that." "But you didn't accept me," Ryla said softly. "You disappeared without a word. You let me believe you were dead." "I thought it was better that way," Ethan said. "You didn't need me. You were royalty, a princess with a future. I was just a soldier." "You were more than that," Ryla said. Her voice trembled, though she tried to steady it. "You were my savior, my protector. I spent years hoping, praying, that I'd see you again, that I could thank you, that I could understand you." She turned away, looking up at the gateway's arch. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the necklace, the charm catching the light. "When I finally found you," she continued, "I thought I'd feel closure. But all I've felt is confusion. You're still a mystery to me, Ethan. And I don't know if I can leave until I figure you out." Ethan lowered himself to the ground, leaning back against the stone wall. He watched Ryla in silence. There was a strength in her, something unyielding. She had every reason to walk away, to return to her kingdom, to let him fend for himself. But she stayed, and that terrified him. "You won't find any answers here," he said quietly. "Just more questions." "Then I'll keep asking," she replied, her voice firm, "until you're ready to tell me." That night, the ceremony began. Ethan hadn't planned it. It wasn't some grand formal event. It was just him, Ryla, and the glow of the stars through the gateway's arch. But in that stillness, with no one else around, the air felt heavy, sacred, like the universe itself had paused to listen. "I don't have much left to give," Ethan said. "But if you want the truth, I'll give you this." He pulled something from his pack, a small weathered tablet with faint engravings. Ryla frowned, stepping closer to see it. The markings were alien, unfamiliar. "This is what I found after the war," Ethan said. "The reason I couldn't stay with my own people. The reason I couldn't go back." "What is it?" Ryla asked, her voice soft. "It's proof," Ethan said. "Proof that the war wasn't what we thought it was. That our leaders, human and alien alike, knew it didn't have to happen. But they let it happen anyway. They let it burn so they could stay in power. And when I found this, I became a liability." Ryla stared at the tablet, her hands shaking. "You've been carrying this all these years." "I didn't know what else to do with it," Ethan admitted. "It's the kind of truth that doesn't set you free. It chains you down, makes you a target, and I couldn't let them take you because of this. I couldn't let them hurt you because I knew too much." Ryla's eyes filled with tears, and this time, she didn't wipe them away. They spilled freely, reflecting the light of the stars above. "You were protecting me," she whispered, "even after you left." Ethan nodded. "Always." The ceremony ended not with words, but with silence. Ryla sat beside Ethan, clutching the tablet in one hand and the necklace in the other. The gateway above them framed the sky, a vast and endless canvas of stars. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a small weight lift from his chest. The truth, once so unbearable, now felt lighter, shared with someone who deserved to know. But the dangers hadn't vanished. The hunt wasn't over. And the truth they now shared was a fragile thing, vulnerable to the enemies that would surely come. Ethan glanced at Ryla, her tear-streaked face calm and steady. He knew they had only just begun. Her reaction was priceless. Under the vast arch of the ruined gateway, the world felt larger than ever. and yet impossibly small. The stars shone coldly above the desert, as if indifferent to the truths Ethan had just laid bare. For Ryla, however, those truths were seismic. They had shattered every simple notion she carried about him, about the war, about why he had vanished, and why he had stayed away. She sat silently beside him, cradling the weathered tablet in her hands. The alien inscriptions shimmered faintly, marking a truth that was too big, too dangerous to ever fully comprehend. Yet it was here, real, undeniable. "Does anyone else know?" Ryla finally asked, her voice quiet, almost reverent. Ethan shook his head. "Not anymore." She looked at him sharply. "Not anymore." He sighed, leaning back against the cold stone. "There were others, back when I first found it. People who helped me decipher it. People who believed it could change things. They're gone now, one by one. Some died in accidents. Some disappeared. Others just stopped talking to me. They knew what I had, and they knew what it meant. I think some of them decided it wasn't worth it. They thought if they stayed quiet, maybe they'd be safe." Ryla's brow furrowed. "And you stayed quiet, too, even though it's cost you everything." "I didn't stay quiet because I was afraid," Ethan said. "I stayed quiet because I didn't know who to trust. I didn't want this to fall into the wrong hands, and I couldn't risk them coming after you." The mention of her stirred something deep within Ryla. "You could have reached out to me," she said. "After all these years, you could have told me. Why didn't you?" Ethan's expression hardened, though his eyes were heavy with regret. "I didn't think you'd want to hear from me. I thought I was doing you a favor by staying away." Ryla looked down at the tablet, her fingers tracing the lines of its alien script. "You thought wrong." A distant threat. Far above, a ship broke through the planet's atmosphere. Its black hull reflected no light, making it almost invisible against the starry expanse. It was Razor's ship, and it wasn't alone. The bounty hunter's failure to apprehend Ethan had not gone unnoticed. He had sent a message, one that reached ears far beyond his usual employers, a message that drew others who wanted to silence the man who knew too much. Inside the lead ship, Razor's expression was grim as he adjusted the coordinates. He wasn't alone anymore. A small fleet followed in his wake. Mercenaries, hunters, and enforcers who understood the stakes. This was no longer about a bounty. It was about ensuring that Ethan Tyrell, and the dangerous truths he carried, never reached the wider galaxy. The fleet accelerated toward the desert. The ruins of the gateway came into view. A sudden attack. Ethan and Ryla had barely begun to discuss their next move when the sound came. Deep, resonant, like thunder rolling over the dunes. Ethan's head snapped up. He knew that sound. "Ships," he said sharply, rising to his feet. "More than one." Ryla stood too, her hand instinctively moving to the small blade she kept hidden at her side. "How many?" "Too many." Ethan grabbed his pack and slung it over his shoulder. "We need to move." The glow of the first landing craft lit the horizon. Ethan pulled Ryla toward a narrow path that led deeper into the ruined colony. They moved quickly, navigating the rubble-strewn corridors as the sound of engines grew louder. The first mercenaries touched down moments later, their heavy boots crunching on the sand. The first confrontation. The old mining colony was a maze of collapsed walls, rusting equipment, and debris. Ethan knew its layout well enough to stay ahead of their pursuers, but he could hear them closing in. Razor's voice echoed over a comm channel, sharp and cold. "Ethan Tyrell," he said, "you've run long enough. Make this easy on yourself." Ethan clenched his jaw. He didn't bother responding. Instead, he led Ryla through a broken air shaft that opened into a vast underground chamber. The space was littered with abandoned machinery and scaffolding, perfect for an ambush. "Stay behind me," he told Ryla, his tone leaving no room for argument. Ryla, however, was not one to obey blindly. "I'm not just going to hide while you fight them alone." "You're not hiding," Ethan said. "You're staying safe." Before she could protest further, the first wave of mercenaries entered the chamber. Ethan moved quickly, using the rusted machinery to his advantage. He knocked down scaffolding to create barriers, used broken pipes as makeshift weapons, and kept the enemy at bay through sheer ingenuity and experience. Ryla watched in awe as he fought, her heart pounding. This was the man she had never truly understood, the man who had given everything to save her once before. And now, even with the odds stacked against him, he refused to back down. The turning point. As more mercenaries poured into the chamber, Ethan began to falter. He was strong, skilled, and resourceful, but he was only one man. His movements slowed, his strikes less precise. A blow to his side sent him reeling against a broken support beam. Ryla couldn't stand by any longer. She stepped forward, drawing her blade. "I won't let you do this alone." Ethan's eyes widened. "Ryla, no." But it was too late. She moved with a precision that surprised him. Her blade was small, but in her hands, it was lethal. She moved quickly, disarming one mercenary and incapacitating another before Ethan could even regain his footing. He stared at her in astonishment. "Where did you learn that?" "Diplomacy isn't the only thing I've studied," she said, her tone calm but firm. The final stand. The chamber echoed with the sounds of combat, clashing metal, grunts of effort, and the heavy thud of bodies hitting the ground. Ethan and Ryla fought side by side, a seamless team that neither of them had anticipated. Razor's voice returned over the comm channel. "Enough of this." A sudden explosion rocked the chamber. The ceiling began to crumble, sending dust and debris cascading down. Ethan shielded Ryla as the room shook. "We can't stay here," he said, coughing against the dust. "This whole place is going to collapse." But before they could retreat, Razor himself appeared. He stepped through the settling dust, his dark armor gleaming, his weapon trained directly on Ethan. "It's over," Razor said coldly. "Hand over the tablet, and I might let you walk away." Ethan's grip tightened on the tablet. "You and I both know that's a lie." Razor smiled faintly. "Maybe. But it doesn't matter. You can't win." Ethan looked at Ryla. Her expression was resolute, her blade still in hand. For a moment, their eyes met, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. "No," Ethan said, "but I can still fight." Her reaction was priceless. As Razor took a step forward, Ryla stepped in front of Ethan. The bounty hunter paused, clearly not expecting her to intervene. "You'd better think carefully," Ryla said, her voice steady, her eyes locked on Razor. "If you kill him, you'll have to answer to me." Razor laughed. "And what makes you think I care about your threats, princess?" Ryla smiled faintly. "Because I'm not just a princess. I'm the one who will make sure the entire galaxy knows the truth. If you kill him, you'll only speed up what you've been trying to prevent." Razor hesitated. He was a killer, but he wasn't a fool. The thought of the truth being revealed, of everything unraveling, was a risk he hadn't calculated. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Ethan, still holding the tablet, stepped up beside Ryla. "So what's it going to be, Razor? Keep fighting a losing battle, or walk away while you still can." There was a long, tense silence. Finally, Razor lowered his weapon. "You're lucky," he said through gritted teeth. "But this isn't over." He turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving them standing alone in the crumbling chamber. Ryla exhaled slowly, her shoulders relaxing. She turned to Ethan, and for the first time since they had reunited, she allowed herself to smile. "That," she said, "was worth it." Ethan laughed, a short, tired laugh that carried relief more than humor. "You're full of surprises." Her smile widened. "So are you." The aftermath. As they emerged from the ruins, the dawn light bathed the desert in a warm glow. Ethan looked at the tablet in his hands, then at Ryla. "What now?" he asked. Ryla tilted her head, her eyes bright. "Now, we show them the truth."